Well, hello, and welcome back. So tonight we're going to continue where we left off in regards to the server that we're creating to host our blog. So for those of you that are watching live on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook, I've got my eye on the YouTube comments. So if you'd like to leave a comment or ask a question, please do so there on YouTube. The link should be in the description. And let's see here before we get started. Yeah, I just want to let you know that's where the comments are. Oh, and if you're not actually watching this live, then check the comments out and look at the Beyond Code Bootcamp playlist. That's where to go and to subscribe to for the videos that have this little intro segment cut out and for things being in the proper order as this is a series. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Well, hello, and welcome back. Tonight we're going to do a continuation of what we did previously with the server and the blog. So first we set up our server, we did a little Hello World site, then we did our blog in Markdown, and now that we have a build script for our blog in Bash, we're going to sync that blog back over to the server and we're going to solve two problems. The first problem is how do we keep the work that we're doing on the server open. So you may have noticed if you disconnected or the internet got disconnected that the server was disconnected and the process that you had open, maybe Vim or whatever you were doing, stopped and the web server stopped, the website was down. So the first is how we're going to use Screen, and the second is that we're going to use Serviceman, which is a systemd service wrapper, to be able to have our server up at all times and to be able to keep our work open even when we're not on the server. So with that, let me go ahead and bring up our terminal here. And I do have, no, Colin's not the only one here. We got some chat going on in the comments. That's great. All right, so what I'm going to do, oh, and by the way, there's a 15-second delay on the comments, just so you know. So I will try to keep an eye on. So what we're going to do is I'm going to, I have my site here that we built. So just to recap, I've got the build script we created last time. And then I'm going to copy all of this over to my server again. So I think that I can just go ahead and copy this whole directory. So // because I want the current directory and everything inside of it. I'm using rsync. And then my server name was beyondcode.duckdns.org, and you might be using duckdns or you might be using name.com for your domain. We covered that in a previous video. And then I happen to remember that the path to my domain, or to where my server is exactly this one that we've got here. So now all of my files are copied over. I'm going to go ahead and log into the server. So I'm going to SSH beyondcode.duckdns.org. If you're following along, of course, you'll change that to be your own domain. And I'm going to Command K to clear my screen here and take a look at what we've got. I've got my Caddy file, which is what we've been using to run the server. So I've got a www redirect to go to the regular domain. And I've got some of this. We're not going to go through all the configuration here now either. This is just some configuration I pulled from the cheat sheet. And this is the directory where we're serving our website from. So home, app, that's the name of my user. It's a common, regular default name to use. And then serve www beyondcode.duckdns.org. So that's where we're serving from. And right now, if I go there, we're going to get nothing. So if I go to beyond code, whoops, that's not the right one. Beyondcode.duckdns.org. We got nothing. Okay, the screen is blurry. Should be streaming high quality and also fairly large. So if the screen's blurry, that might be on your side. Just to answer in a comment there, I'm going to back my face out just a touch though so that we can see all of me. I should have done that beforehand, sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and teach you about Screen before I even get the server started, because I think that's the first thing. Screen is a command that will continue to run even when you exit the server. So I'll demonstrate this. I'm going to have two terminal windows open here. Whoops, that's not what I intended to do. Let me see if I can exit out of that. Okay, I'm going to have a second terminal window. I'm going to make that bigger so it's easier to read. Okay. All right, now in this one, in this terminal, I'm actually on my server, and I'm going to run screen-xrs awesome. Now, as you might be able to tell, awesome is not actually specified. That's an arbitrary name. But this is the magic command to run when you're using screen. This is going to have, it's going to allow screen sharing if you want to have multiple people logging in and do some pair coding or have some help debugging. It's going to pick up the screen where you left off if you got booted out. Basically, these options are the magic options. And the way that I remember this is XRS, X marks the spot, R, like a pirate that sets sail. So XRS, and it's a capital R, capital S, so you know. I'm going to hit this, and then we see down here at the bottom it says new screen, and I hit enter again, and it drops me off at my prompt. It looks like everything's the same as before, but now I am in a screen. So I'm going to go ahead and run Caddy run, and then my Caddy file. And so now my web server's running. So now if I go back over here in my browser, now I've got my blog is actually being served. So if you go here right now while this is live, you'll see, and I'll go ahead and paste this in the comments so you can see. beyondcode.duckdns.org is live and working. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I am going to close out my screen there. So give me just 1 second. Let's see. Are these about the same size here? I think that one's a little bit more well suited. Okay, just 1 second while I get these windows adjusted so you can see well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just exit out of this. So I didn't log out of the server properly. I didn't do anything to other than run screen. Now I'm going to log back into the server again, and I'm going to do screen.-xrs awesome. And the awesome is for the name of the screen. I didn't actually get to saying that earlier. So you give a screen a name. You can give it any name you want. I just do awesome because it's easy for me to remember. So screen-xrs awesome, and I hit enter, and voila, here I am. What I was in the middle of doing is still here. So this is really great. And what I want to be able to do is work on more than one thing at a time. I don't want to have to open up a new terminal for every single thing that I want to do on that server and have to switch between terminals necessarily. So there's a sequence, which is Control A and then C will create another screen inside of that screen. So it's kind of tabbed almost. And then if I do Control A in, then I can go to the next screen. So I can do Control A in, Control A in, Control A in, and it's just cycling between the two screens. So this is a little piece of magic that more people, I wish more people knew about, and that's why I'm telling you about it. So with that, now we can start working on part 2, which is how do we get a service to stay running all the time, even when the server, if the server has to reboot, the service will come up automatically. And so for that, we're going to use Serviceman. And let me get over to, I'm actually going to start us out at the cheat sheet for Caddy. So webinstall.dev/Caddy. That's our web server that we're using. Now, if we go down and we look at, let's see, it's a little bit further down. We're going to see a couple of things that are important. One of which is set cap. So again, I forgot to say this right at the beginning. I usually try to say this at the beginning. Go ahead and open up just.github.com. Make sure you're taking notes while we're doing this because I want you to be able to remember and be successful in this. And this should be part of your blog. How to keep services running on a server should be, this is something that an employer would like to know that you know how to do and that you have a reference to if you forget, which you will, because there's too many hundreds of millions of things to learn to remember them all. So we keep a blog and that helps us. So anyway, One thing that we need to do is run this command. It's not really important you'll never need to memorize what this is. This is one of those things that you always just look up and piece together again. But what this does is it allows a service to run on what we call privileged ports. So basically, typically only an administrator is allowed to run a server. And we don't want to use an administrator to run a server, because if we do that, there's some security issues that could happen. So we always want a user to run a service on a server. I use the term server and service interchangeably, but we always want a user that is not the administrator user to be able to do this. And so this little command setcap just allows that to happen. And all this mumble jumble is just kind of just like I said with, every time you use screen, just always use -XRS. Same kind of thing here, except I'm not going to go all into it. This is all the options that no matter what you're doing, it'll always work 100% of the time. So this is the little golden nugget, silver bullet, copy paste snippet. And the only thing that we would change in this is whatever the name of the service is. So in this case, it's Caddy. If it was, say, a Node service or a Python service or a Ruby service, then we would just change that for the name of whatever the thing is that's running. And then after that, a little bit lower down in this cheat sheet, systemd is typically what's used on Linux servers to be able to cause something to run even when the server reboots. So think about this. You install, say, Slack on your computer or something similar to that, and when you reboot your computer and start it up, some of those programs still start anyway. So they are either system services or they're user services on your laptop. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a system service on the server. So that means when it reboots, it's going to come back up. Systemd is the thing that does that on Linux. On Mac, it's called launched, and on Windows, it's some Windows services thing, but it doesn't behave quite like these, and Windows is the oddball out on all these things. But anyway, systemd and launch control are both a little bit difficult to configure. And so with Serviceman, we have a fairly simple way that we can reproduce with lots of different services and programs that we can keep something running in the background and start on boot. So I will explain what this command is because I think it is worth explaining. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, notice that we have our Caddy file. That's our web server configuration file, or web servers Caddy. That's a configuration file right there. So I just want you to notice that that's where that is. And I'll go through this line by line here. So sudo means run as administrator. So we're not going to log in as the administrator. We're just going to take over administrator privileges. This is kind of like on Windows or Mac. Sometimes it pops up and it's like, you need to be an administrator to do this. Insert your password. That's what the sudo is, but just on the command line. And then with env, path equals path, this is basically saying when the user's logged in, there's certain places that it looks for programs. And we are running this env command, which is going to allow us to take the current user settings and apply them to the command that's being run by the administrator. That might sound a little advanced. Don't worry about it too much. I'm just explaining it line by line right now. Here's what's important. Serviceman add -- system -- username. Who am I? Name -- name Caddy. So what this is saying is, Serviceman, I want you to add a system level service. I want you to add it for the user, whatever user who am I returns. So there's a command called who am I, and it'll return who you are. In this case, it would return app. And so this is the same as if I had typed -- username app, but to make this more of a silver bullet, we use the command that returns the username of the system. And then -- name Caddy means what we're going to name this service. So if we were to look at a list of services, they're each going to have a different name. This one is going to be named Caddy. So, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Hold on just 1 second there. Okay. Now, the next bit is the command that is going to be registered as the service. So first, we had the things we needed to do to temporarily run this command elevated as an administrator so it can register as a system service. Second, we have what we're describing is how we're going to register as a system service. And then third, we have the actual command. So this is the same command that we've been running already. And we're just saying that we're going to take that command and have it run as a system service. So when I hit enter, oh, whoops, I did not install Serviceman yet. Okay, so we're going to go to webinstall.dev and we're going to install webby. So I'm just going to copy and paste this command here to install webby. Whoops, if I can get it to copy and paste cleanly. And webby is just a little, this is the fastest, safest, simplest way to install programs that you need on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So webby, I can type webby and then Serviceman, and then Serviceman is going to go ahead and install. If you hadn't used webby before, you'd see another little notice that you need to run an additional command or log in and log out for it to finish the install process, but it's already done that before. So now I'm just going to hit up and I'm going to be able to run that command. Okay, here we go. So it's important to look at the output of commands and try to understand them. You're not going to understand everything, but again, it's about getting the little nuggets that you do understand, using those as anchor points to learn about things you don't understand. So let me go through this here just so you can see. So here's the output. Options, making some assumptions. Because this is your current working directory, it's going to put that option. So basically what Serviceman is saying, here's some things that you didn't tell me to do explicitly, but I'm assuming that you meant for me to do. And it's letting you know that's what's going on there. Same thing here. It's saying, this is what I pulled out of the command that you told me to run. This is exactly what it's going to look like when it runs. And so that looks right. We put in the name of the command Caddy, and it's actually taking the full path. It's saying the Caddy command that exists in this folder is the one we're going to run. And then we go down, and this is pretty important stuff right here. This is something that you want to put in your notes. So Serviceman just creates, either on Mac it creates a launch control service, or on Linux it creates a system control service, or system D service and launch D service. And so these commands right here are what you need in order to run, to stop, start, restart those services manually. So this is the kind of thing where if we wanted to stop Caddy and not have it run anymore, because if we look right now, it'll be running. If we want to stop it, that's the command we run. If we want to start it, that's the command we run. And then also on Linux, you've got systemd manages a service, and journald gives you the logs, so you can see what, if something goes wrong, you can look at logs for the service. And that's what journal control is. So this command right here is how we look at the logs for Caddy. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to hit Control-A-N so I can go to our other screen where we've got Caddy running. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. So I'm going to hit Control-C to cancel that. All right, and then I'm going to hit Control-A and then in again so I can go back to the screen I was in. And I'm going to take a look at the logs from Caddy. So I just copy and paste that. Again, this is one of those things where I don't try to teach you every possible option that you could use for most of these programs. I try to identify either the silver bullet that you can put in your notes and just copy and paste it when you need it, or the one or two options that you need. So this right here is your silver bullet for journal control. This is what you want to do most of the time when you want to look at logs. These are the options that you want, except you replace the name of Caddy with the name of whatever service it is that you're trying to get logs for. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and then we can see it looks like it loaded the config. Looks like it was successful. So I'm going to go ahead back to our web page where my blog is, and I'm going to restart. Oh, so it looks like something actually went wrong. So what I'm going to do, and it may have been because in this other screen, we still had Caddy running when I tried to start the service. So I hit Control-A-N to go back there. I'm going to go back here again. I'm going to scroll back a little bit and see if I still have this in my history. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop the service that we just created. I'm going to start it again, and then I'm going to look at the logs. So there, I'm going to stop it. I see what I did wrong here. I need to do sudo because I'm running a system level command, so I need to use sudo to give myself system level privileges. So I'm going to stop Caddy, and then I'm going to start Caddy, and then I'm going to look at the logs. So you notice when I start it, none of that output that we got before is present on the screen. All of it is going to the logs, and I need to do sudo because I'm looking at system level logs for this. So I'm going to do sudo journal control, and let's see what we get. Okay, it looks like, here we are. So now Caddy is running at all times, and what I'm going to do to prove this, so put in your notes with screen. There's one other thing with screen that I forgot to mention at the time. The only other thing you need to know about screen is Control-A-D, which is for detach. So there's the three things. There's screen-XRS awesome with capital R, capital S. X marks the spot. Arg, sail away. Which what they actually mean, I'm not even going to try to explain. I'm just going to tell you those are the options that work, and it allows you to do the things I mentioned before. But so that's number one. Number two with screen is Control-A-C will create a new tab that you can cycle through. You won't see the tab, but it's there. Control-A-N will cycle through the tabs, and Control-A-D will let you detach from a screen. So I can detach from the screen, and then I could, now if I hit Control-A-N, I'm not in screen anymore. My tabs aren't there. I can reattach to the screen. That's actually what the R stands for. I'll tell you what it is. X allows you to have multiple users at the same time. R allows you to reattach to a screen. S gives you the name of the screen. That's what those options stand for. Anyway, so I can connect to this again, and I'm back where I was. I can Control-A-N, Control-A-N, Control-A-D to get out. Okay, now I'm going to run sudo shutdown -R now. This is not something you really need to remember. You probably won't ever use this, but what I'm doing is I'm telling the server, okay, you're going to reboot. So as the computer reboots, you'll notice I hit refresh. My server is no longer up. Oh, it's doing a caching thing right now. So the reason that it was showing up every other time was not because the server was up. It was because the web browser has a behavior that if it recently had a page and the page isn't visible, sometimes it'll just show you the old version of the page. Okay, so after about 30 seconds here, we're going to see that the server reboots. So if I were to try to log into the server right now, it may or may not let me log in. Yeah, it's not letting me log in. So the server's actively rebooting. Connection refused. It's not done rebooting yet. All right, and I'm just going to refresh over here. Okay, the server's back up. I can SSH back into it. There we are. Now, since I've rebooted, unfortunately, the screen session is not going to still be available. I'm going to hit Command-K to stop this. So the screen session is kind of like the lock screen at your computer. So if you've got a bunch of things open and your computer's at the lock screen and then you go in, all those things are open. Screen's kind of like that. But if you reboot your computer, the things that were open typically are no longer open, or at least some of them are closed. Some of them might reopen, like your browser might open. It might reload all the tabs that were there. But if you had, something going on, you reboot your computer, all that stuff is gone. So same thing happened here. Now that I've rebooted, I'm creating a new screen. And if I want to have tabs again, so let me just do hello. If I do Control-A-N, that other tab isn't there anymore. But if I do Control-A-C, it's there. So there we are. Now we've covered, so if I want, generally speaking, we don't reboot servers. I was just showing that as an example. And sometimes you get an email and it says something like, there was a problem with your server, we'll be rebooting it. That might happen once every couple of years or something. So you want to have your stuff running as services so that when that happens, everything comes back up like it should. And you want to test that, just like we did, you want to test that it works. But that is essentially the nature of it, is we don't reboot things on purpose, generally speaking. But that said, I'm going to open up Vim in here just to show you. Okay, I've got some notes on regular expressions in here. I'm going to hit Control A in. I'm over in my other tab of screen. Control A in. I'm back in the previous one. Control A D. I'm detached from the screen. So now I'm back at the main terminal without any screen. And I'm going to hit Control D again, and I'm going to get logged out. So again, just to demonstrate, I'm going to log back in. I'm going to run our screen command again. I'm going to hit Control A in. Boom. Vim is still running. So this is how we have programs that we want to continue to run the server. This is how we have our system services. So with that, we now have a server that's running systemd. And I could show, I'll take 1 second to show you what a systemd config file looks like. I'm not going to go through all the options because it's one of those things it's really tedious to get right. And basically when you write your own, you end up just copying one that works, and then you modify things if you need to. Like if you learn that you need to modify an option, you go Google it and you figure out what that option is. But again, with Serviceman, we kind of get that silver bullet, that 80-20, where you get the thing that's going to work almost 100% of the time without you having to go in and make modifications. But it is important to just kind of see what a service file looks like. And the Mac launchd service file looks completely different. But this is what a Linux service file looks like. It can have some comments. It has some sections that are designated with words in a bracket. And then it has key value pairs. So meaning basically a variable and then a value. So we've got a description. We've got this stuff like after and once basically means where in the boot order will this service start. Obviously, a web server has to start after the network is online. If the web server were to try to start before the network's available, there would be no network address for it to be able to serve on, and that could cause an error. So we need to wait for that. And that's kind of typically the thing that you do with almost any server. Typically, you want your service to restart if it crashes, and you want it if it keeps crashing over and over again. That's what these lines are. You don't want it to just keep crashing over and over again. That means that something was wrong that needs user intervention. What user and group should it run as? Again, we don't want things to run at the system level. We want them to run as a user. What directory should it be running from? What command should it run with? In the case of Caddy, we have something special, which is the we tell it how to reload, to do a soft reload rather than a hard reload. But again, this stuff isn't particularly important that you really dive deep and understand at this point. You just need to know that the file exists. You need to have seen it before, and you need to be comfortable enough to kind of Google your way around when you need to. And it's going to be hard, and we can have another video that's really digging into that stuff. But it's kind of one of those things where you're going to learn little bits and pieces here and there, and then they come together eventually. You can't just sit down and learn everything all at once. So the thing that we needed to learn was basically, you want to put in your notes. This is the command that you run to allow software to use privileged ports as a regular user, meaning that it can connect to the internet in complete and in full. This is the command that you want to use, similar command to this, to be able to add a system service. You could adapt this to be something else, particularly the last line and the name Caddy would be what you'd change. And then using screen, super helpful. So with that out of the way, if this was useful for you, if at any point you had a little nugget of an aha moment, I know it's a lot to take in. You're not going to understand all of it. We're just kind of doing a little bit of cheat sheet style, a little bit of walk you through. But if you had that little moment where there was a nugget that helped you, go ahead and give this a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe to the live channel, that's this channel. And if you'd like to, this might actually be edited if you didn't hear the part at the beginning about this being the live channel. But if you want to subscribe to the playlist, that's in the description. That's the Beyond Code Bootcamp playlist. And with that, I will stay on the line for questions in just a moment, but I will, for the purpose of the edited video, I'm going to say adios. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information. I know that most likely you're going to be like, oh, I didn't understand all that. Hopefully, you're able to take away what you need to put in notes to replicate this. What I recommend is you set up your server and you run through this process again. That said, hit me up with some questions. There's about a 15-second delay between when I speak and when you hear me. So I'm going to wait for about a minute and see if you got any questions. If not, I'll cut this baby off. And no questions are stupid questions. And it's okay if you had a question way early on. Hello, CFY Clan co-leader. Welcome. So for those of you that may have just joined in, I'm just waiting for questions and then I'm going to end the stream. All right, then. I would love your feedback on this. So this, what this is here is just a very first pass at some material that I'm working on. So I kind of created a basic outline and I'm going through it in teaching style for the first time with you live. The ultimate result of this is going to be taken down into something that's much more concise and that addresses comments, questions, concerns that come up as I share this. So, you know, it's fine if you say, dude, that video sucked. As long as you can then tell me like 2 reasons it sucked. Like, you talked too fast. You totally didn't explain this. And there are some assumptions about what you've watched in previous videos. I try to mention those at the beginning. But most likely, it's not because you didn't see the previous video. Most likely it's because I didn't do as good of a job at walking through the material in the right order. And that's kind of to be expected as this being a live first draft of me just going off of a couple of notes as opposed to, the typical scripted presentation that you get with a lot of these other videos. But it looks like y'all have peaced out. I don't see anybody else watching anymore except for good old Casper. So with that, yeah, we'll do the real adios. And I'll trim this and get this up on the playlist.